Okay, Steve. I'm not a fan of this format at all. That's why I'm doing this whole fucking get up. So, here we go. First question. What at least two themes do you see notably present in the response? Take a look. I said pretty obvious shit like nuance and appeal to authority. Um, is there another question? How those themes and conversations, the way or with the way we talk about the world or the way the world works. I'm sorry, my head's like not here. I'm not feeling all that great. Um, those themes, I feel like don't really come up as often as they need to be, especially nuance. The theme of nuance comes up literally all the fucking time in philosophy. It's like you can't hear enough about nuance and shit in philosophy, but the thing about nuance is that it's often lacking in our modern world and our society that we live in. Considering the fact that most people like to look at things in black and white and don't really like to consider the subtle aspects of any given topic or concept in that specific time. Let's see. Is justice blind to the important social values, or at least only one-eyed? Can you respond with this with nuance? Ha, get it? And resisting something conclusive. Okay, let's see what I said here. I said depends on the context. Like always, in human terms, and living and experiencing things, yeah, sure. Because we have this subjective view on things that's often construed by emotions and biases that go unchecked and corrected for years, and honestly, most of our lives. It's really. Wait, what did I say here? In terms of other beings, yeah, no, that's just for being a human, in all honesty. Humans are very flawed and don't really consider a lot of the things outside of their range of experiencing things. We often see things in the 100-year gap or whatever that we like to think we're going to live our lives in. And that kind of destroys our ability to see as objectively as possible. But this is where I went with that. I also said, but in terms of other beings outside of ourselves that handle things like what one might consider to be deterministic aspects of our lives, that's a whole other concept and idea and conversation unto itself that we can get into. But the thing about that is that you can go into that for God knows how long and not really reach a conclusive stance on that entirely, because you got to consider the fact that this is Eastern philosophy is really what I'm getting at. You know, the idea of like a reincarnation and different lifetimes and stuff like that. When you get into that, then you get into things like that have been discussed in institutes that the Western society, like our American society and European society, have just been really getting into and making actual contact with real science, like the Newton Institute from Dr. Michael Newton, and his science and his findings on past lives and how other people have been able to regress themselves into past lives, and how he, as a hypnotherapist and a licensed psychologist, have been able to do that. And being able to regress people in different brain waves and different theta states, alpha states, whatever the hell you want to freaking call those states, it doesn't matter. Well, obviously it matters because it matters in what state you get these various knowledges and whatever the fuck in. But anyways, that's entirely a different topic. The topic we're talking about now is how justice can be one. What was that? Hold on, I gotta go back. Blind to important social values. So yeah, it really depends on how you see it. Like I said, it depends on the context. In human terms, absolutely, because we're flawed. But in terms of higher beings that we don't really have contact with right now, because the elevation of our consciousness is absolutely fucking shitty, and we don't really see other people. We only really see ourselves, and that's really why aliens won't talk to us. But we're not going to talk about that. Those different beings, they see things that we don't really see. They might see and be able to explain how things like rape and murder is justified, but you can't really say that those are, yeah, they're inexcusable acts, murder and rape. Obviously, you can't sit up here and justify those fucking things as a human because, like, yeah, they're terrible. But when you get into other different realities of being, and when these other beings have conscious, whatever the fuck, these other entities you want to call them, it doesn't even really matter. These beings, these individuals, when they're helping us plot out the entirety of our lives and whatnot, as philosophy and other people have experienced, including myself, when they're plotting out the entirety of our fucking lives, and they're saying, look, this is going to happen to you here because of this, and you got to satisfy this karmic act here, and here. And it's like, yeah, it could be easy to say that this thing that happened to me is super unfair, but we're not really looking at it from the grander scope of whatever the fuck these other beings are seeing it from. AKA, I see you and your other multitude of lifetimes, thus you need to be able to experience this thing in order to satiate this element here from this other lifetime. But like I say all the time, this isn't, some place where I really want to get into this type of shit, because in all honesty, this is just a fucking assignment for school. Obviously. Moving on. Misuse of the idea of ethics of care. What other concept that we encounter do you believe we misuse? Blah, 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 blah. Provide examples. I said that I feel that we attribute authority to to coincide with ethics, saying that we see authority figures as these holy ethical figures, and they can do no wrong, and blah, 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 blah. I'm not even just talking about people like law enforcement or politicians, but I can also say that about people like philosophers, whether it be philosophers such as like Immanuel Kant or David Hume, or, the classical antiquity philosophers and scientists back in the day of ancient Greece and ancient Rome and whatnot. It doesn't... I'm getting off on a tangent, and I'm kind of forgetting where I'm going with this shit. But the point of the matter is that I feel we attribute these authority figures to be coinciding with ethics, and that these figures, because they are authority, they have ethical values that we should live up to and we should strive to be, when in reality that's kind of a fallacy. Just because something or somebody is an authority figure or whatever doesn't mean that they also hold ethics. And that's what they were getting into in the authoritarian view of blah, 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 blah in the book. Maybe. I don't know. Philosophy is weird that way. Maybe they could have been talking about it in an entirely different way, and I just was reading into it a little bit differently. It doesn't really fucking matter at the end of the day, I guess. It matters. I don't know why I'm saying that. I'm just not in the best of moods. I'm not feeling great. And if I'm being honest with you, Steve, I really fucking hate this format. I do. I hate talking in front of a fucking camera. Okay, D. Read through some of your classmates, blah, 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 blah. Did you notice anything of direct value? I said, I guess, I could twist and turn literally anything and everything that somebody says into something that relates into what I say, All roads lead to QAnon. Blah, 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 blah. Isn't that what you say? Okay, moving on here. How long was this? Holy shit, this is fucking 8 minutes. Jesus Christ. I doubt you're gonna watch all this. I really do. So I can literally probably just say anything at this point, but I'm not going to, because maybe you actually do have the time to just watch and listen to your students' ramblings about literally whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? What did I write down for number 2, moral philosophy? The criticism view from this. The football video. Alternative possibilities. What did I say about that? I didn't really say much. So yeah, basically the coercive nature of it. I do remember them talking about the coerciveness of everything. And I don't know if they necessarily labeled it as this, but the differences of like violent coerciveness versus like regular coerciveness. And I guess one could say that, yeah, he might have been coerced into pushing that health inspector or whatever the health guy was doing out there to make sure that the football player was okay. He could have been coerced by him because he got shoved. But in all honesty, if you really want to go that route, we could just say that literally everybody is coerced into everything, and I can make some excuse for stealing money from a bank by saying that I was coerced by the United States government for putting capitalism onto my being and limiting me by making me get money in these very archaic and god-awful Machiavellian type of fucking ways most of the time, I would say. But like, you can't, you just can't make that fucking excuse. You can't. Like, yeah, there's a difference between having a gun pointed to your head and saying, do this, do that, do whatever the fuck, and versus just being coerced with fighting words, or I might have touched you a way that you didn't want me to touch you, or something like that guy did in the football thing. But obviously, he needed him to get back so that he could treat him. But the guy being coerced into doing that, it's like you can't really say that. You can't. You can, obviously you can make that argument, but is it a sound and reasonable argument? It's not really. I guess that kind of covers B too. It's like, yeah, coercive nature of the football player versus the violent coercion, like a bank robbery. Yeah, sure. If I'm being coerced into helping this bank robber rob the bank, and he gives me money, and then I somehow get, or not somehow, obviously I'm gonna get caught by the police because I was just there trying to get money from the ATM. He was like, hey, you know what? Let me give you like $500 because you helped me rob this bank for 10 grand. It's like, okay, yeah, thanks, man. But in reality, you kind of just fucked my whole day over because now the police think that I'm in on with you. It's like, okay, yeah, in that coercive nature, obviously anything you do is like you're doing to save yourself and save your own life. But at the end of the day, to make the comparison between the two is a bit ridiculous. That's just in my opinion. I will say number 3, I did not understand the question for letter A. For B, I said common sense is entirely subjective. Ooh, such a grand philosophy there. How much did I really accomplish saying that? But seriously, what may be common sense to one might be complete lunacy to another, and you see that every day with video cameras being invented and people recording the most nonsensical shit out there in society. People might say, oh yeah, that's understandable, that guy did this, but then you go to another person and they say, oh well, I don't know, that other guy was actually acting pretty reasonable too, and I think that first guy was acting kind of dumb. It's like there's no real objective common sense because we don't have that place yet, really. But it's another topic. Let's see here. There's that last one. Oh yeah, what other things do we seem to get wrong about our society? Oh boy, let me count the fucking ways. Yeah. Wait, what was it? Does simplicity play a role? Okay. So yeah, no, I really think that most of the shit that we do in our society nowadays is not right. We're not hitting the mark. We're missing the mark. Christians might refer to that shit as sinning because it's quite literally how it is defined, but literally, like, we're missing the mark. And I believe this to be such as in the way that we diagnose people psychologically or even physiologically, or the way we live as a society, or how our politicians govern our society and the nations as a whole, or really just about anything as opposed to things like war and violence and whatnot. Yeah, of course, we're missing the fucking mark. We're doing it wrong. We're not actually doing things the right way. We have the shit like death penalties, which have been known to kill people that are literally fucking innocent. Like, that is the absolute worst parts of society right there. Let's see what else. You know what? I don't feel like saying anything else about that because it's actually starting to get me a little pissed. So, yeah. Do I have anything else to say? I have a lot to say, but honestly, I think I've said enough. And I'm going on like 15 minutes now, so yeah. Steve, I don't like these formats. I don't like this format of talking in front of a camera. I never really have liked talking in front of the camera. I feel really awkward doing this shit, and it makes me feel really weird. Yeah, I've thought of making content for things like YouTube and shit before, but whenever I think about the prospect of recording myself in front of the camera like I'm doing now, it makes me feel really weird and anxious, and it's not really something I like to do. And it's not really something that I want to do simply for the fact that I can go on YouTube and find like 100,000 other motherfuckers doing the same shit that I'm doing literally right now. But hey, what are you gonna do? I guess I have to do this. You know that. You made me. All right, that's it. Peace.